Hey everyone, Colton here with another episode of the Founder Social Club podcast. I'm here with Keith Shields. He's a CEO and co-founder of Designli, a leading software and web development company. To get started, can you kick us off by telling us how you got into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, Colton, thanks for having me. So, entrepreneurship in the first place, my dad actually owned a web design company way back in the early days of the web. And he built some of the early websites. He brought Smuckers online. That was one of his big customers. So, some of the first internet stuff. And so, I was always kind of hearing him talk about web and entrepreneurial ventures like that. And so, when I was 10, what my request for my 10th birthday was to get a domain name. So, I had kdshields.com, my personal website. And at the time, that was like, what you're into when you're 10. I was storing buddy icons for AOL Instant Messenger. I had like my buddy icon directory that all my friends used and copied it over to their AOL buddy icon. And I got a blog set up, convincing my friends to launch blogs that I would host for them. So
Wow.
that was kind of the very early doing stuff, hacking around and stuff on the web, entrepreneurial itch stuff from my hearing about my dad talking about the web.
Very cool. I had a similar story actually. So I was a big Cubs fan and I went to Wrigley Field and I launched a blog,
There you go.
Blogspot, and I got like a Google AdSense thing and was trying to raise money for the playoff tickets. And I was like around the same age. So interesting that we have that in common. So tell us a bit about in college, like you were already building things. What did those experiences teach you about what it takes to build something people want?
Yeah. So you jump from 10 to when I was in high school, I had this artist website. It was a forum, like a discussion board that I sold for 5 grand before going to college. And then that was my one and only exit, my big 5 grand exit. So, entrepreneurial success story.
Congrats.
And then in college, yeah, I launched a proper startup with angel investment money and stuff with my buddy who's now still my business partner, which it's called Applets. So it was this monthly app idea competition where folks could submit a napkin sketch of an idea they wished existed and vote on their favorites, and we would go and build the highest voted ideas at the end of each month and split the profits with everyone that helped. So at the time there was this website called Quirky, which was doing that for consumer products, and so we did that but applied to software ideas. And yeah, I mean, what all those things taught me about entrepreneurship was kind of, I think I had the benefit of doing all these things, all three of those examples, 10, high school, college. I had the benefit of doing all those when I didn't need revenue. So I was like toiling away at stuff that was just not making any money at all. But learning a lot, right? Learning a lot of stuff, building things, figuring out what made good software development, good products, but also what made concepts that resonated with users. Because some of those things that I built got fairly well used and had pretty big user communities. So I think the takeaway is that you have to try a bunch of stuff and not rush to perfect things and find a bunch of revenue. But so building a great way of building a business is starting young enough because you can toil away and learn without having to stress and pay for your mortgage. So
For sure. What were some cool projects that came out of Applets? Like you said, some of them had some pretty big user bases.
yeah. I mean, Applets was that monthly app idea contest, so we ran it for 3 years, and built only successfully launched 16 apps, so definitely not one per month. We learned a lot about. The idea was we raised investment. We tried to pay established agencies to build these winning app
Oh,
concepts
okay.
for us. And so we learned a lot about how horrible it is to try to have money and pay an outside company to build something and like get it to what your vision was on your phone. And the black box experience, horrible communication, not being proactive, being riddled with bugs. There's a lot of learnings there that had us create Designli as our current business. Out of that, it's like we need to build an agency that solves these problems. But anywho, to answer your actual question, the cool projects out of that, it was a handful. It was kind of in the age of Instagram, right? Instagram in 2012 sold for like $1 billion with no revenue. So they were all like consumer facing
Cool.
mobile app concepts, like Alarmate, where I could record a message for you, Colton. Your phone goes off in the morning with your alarm, and it's me yelling at you some profanity like "get up," to your friends. So there was some cool stuff like that, like the emoji generator with my own face, right, being silly faces that I could send to you. So it was all
Cool.
just kind of consumer facing stuff like that. That some of them had a couple 100,000 downloads and things, but revenue wise, that company was a complete flop. We only made $1,800 over the course of 3 years. So again, you're
Oh,
building cool
good
stuff and
experience,
finding
yeah.
users, but not building a business necessarily. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that led you into Designli. So talk us to a little bit about that. When you launched that, what were the problems you were solving?
Totally. Yeah. So the problems we were solving stemmed from, again, this experience of having some investment money and trying to pay established software development firms writing code for hire to build these winning apps for us. And what we found was it felt like a black box. You had no proactive status updates, and you had to like email the company to say, "Hey, how's it going? I haven't heard from you in a couple weeks or a couple months." And then you don't know what's happening, you don't know where your money's going until bing, 6 months later, here's your working app. And then when you actually go and install it, it's riddled with bugs. It doesn't match the designs that we supplied. It's not to our vision of what we expected. Yeah, finding a firm that could marry good design with good engineering prowess at the same time was challenging. There's some folks that are great designers, but horrible on the dev side. And just finding categories of developers that had the similar understanding of what done and complete and consumer ready was. Like we hired companies in New York City for $500 an hour and Nepal for $5 an hour, and like went all over the world, right? Eastern Europe, Latin America. We've hired folks in everywhere, and a unified understanding of what is a quality piece of software, not just the code behind the scenes, but like what does it feel like to the end user who has high expectations because you're used to using things like Instagram that are very polished, was very, very hard. So we set out Designli to build an agency that we wish we could have found with those problems in mind.
For sure. And you touched a little bit about hiring people all over. As a startup, like hiring is a very important aspect. Talk us through like what you looked for in those hiring process and like how do you choose those developers to work with you?
Yeah, we've always screened for those skill sets that seem rudimentary or basic, but are actually challenging. Especially, no offense to developers, but developers like to have their head down. They're told requirements that are like spoon fed to them. They have their head down for a week or two to build it the way they want, and then they ship it with no like proactive status updates of here's what I did today, here's why, here's what I need from you. Like that's just a common thing with the developer personality. So we've always been really intent on hiring developers that are better on the soft skill part. And it's no different than like you, Colton, if you were to hire a plumber to come to your house and like fix something, it's like, what do you wish you could find in that person? You wish they would call you right back, explain something with no developer jargon or plumber jargon of like what the problem is, give you a clear estimate of time and money to fix the thing, send you maybe send you a text when they're on the way there saying, here's my face, I'll be there in 20 minutes, I'll knock on the front door and pet your dog, and then call you after the job's done a day later and say, how was the experience? Like, I want feedback. Hope it was good. Like, these are all very simple things, but
Yeah,
this is the stuff that we've focused on building our business around. From that comes from hiring the developer all the way up to like how you manage the company and treat customers. So trying to make that whole experience enjoyable starts with who you hire.
for sure, 100%. How big is the team now today?
We've got about 80 people total, full timers.
Really cool. And like when you started Designly, did it kick off right away, or like talk us through the iterative process and like
Yeah,
onboarding customers?
yeah. So it did work right away, which is only because we had that
The
applets thing
features.
going on for 3 years,
Yeah,
where we had a big, I mean, big is in relative terms, we had about 16,000 people on that platform thereabouts, and so we had a big database of folks submitting app ideas, and some of them were actually coming to us saying, "Hey, Keith and Josh, who's my business partner, I don't want to submit my amazing app idea to this public voting contest. Can I just pay you money to build this for me?" And that actually was happening during those 3 years. And finally, we said, "Okay, yeah, we're about to graduate college here from Ohio State. Like, we need to make some money." Right, and avoid getting real jobs. And so we said yes towards the end of that experience, and therefore had a good number of paying clients on day one when we started saying yes. So that was nice. And we used, and any services company needs a big slew of portfolio items of what are we capable of building, what do these apps look like, and we got that from the applets apps. We're like, here's some of the stuff we're capable of managing the production of, even though the development was outsourced at the time. That was kind of fodder for building a services brand. So it did work right away. It was just a slog because at first we didn't have enough revenue to have a good management team. We didn't have enough revenue, so we were the managers. We didn't have enough revenue to have any sales squad other than myself, the sales guy, for many, many years. I mean, shoot, that was the case for like 8 years out of these 13. So that part was painful, but the customers came.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for those 8 years, how did you go about like the go to market and managing everything in the sales process while building?
I think it was nice because I was the sales guy and the marketing guy, and then my business partner Josh is the delivery guy. That's always been how we've segmented the roles. And since we were high school buddies turned business partners, and since the company was really small, it was like us as the management team, and then we just had developers. We were able to keep those two things in lockstep, and so we were evolving our offering. We went from fixed price because we thought that's what customers needed, and then we learned that that's not actually how software works. Like, this thing evolves after you build it, and you get user feedback and you pivot, and it's like, okay, fixed prices leads to constant scope battles with the customer. So we moved to time and materials, but then customers don't want a blank check. And then many years later, now we're on dedicated product teams of assigned pods focused full time on the customer's mission, adopting it as their own, giving them shower thoughts at the end of the day of like, I want to do this better for the customer tomorrow. It's full-time focus, gives you a lot of benefits. And during all those iterations, sales and delivery guys being business partners, like, we were able to keep the sales discussion and the go-to-market strategy kind of in lockstep with an evolving business model, which was helpful. And now that we have salespeople and marketing people and stuff, that's harder, right? Because you have to get everyone to row in the same direction. And that's kind of become very obvious in the last year, 6 months, with AI coding getting much better and faster. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we'll dive deeper into the AI and where the future's headed in a bit here. But first, talk to me about the offering that you had originally for like the past 10 years, the Solution Lab. What that do for the customers?
Yeah, so Solution Lab is a offering that is plastered far and wide over the internet. So if you search Designli, that'll be the thing you see, is a bunch of reviews, testimonials, and materials around what the Solution Lab is. Because yeah, that has been our starting point offer for many, many years. Pretty much the entire time Designli's been in business, save for the last 6 months. And what the Solution Lab was, or is, we still sell it, just less quantity these days. Our ICP is, our ideal customer persona is non-technical founders. So folks that don't know how to code and they want to build a software-driven business. And so what that ICP has always wanted, Colton, is certainty of, in terms of what am I jumping into when I'm building my custom software based business. And so for many years, for almost all the years, building the software was the hard part, right? It was a slog. It took a bunch of engineers, a bunch of time to build code, and it just took a long time. So the Solution Lab was a fixed price offer where we would spend 2 weeks designing a complete visual simulation of what it is the app would look like, or the web app would look in a clickable demo in Figma, right? Where you can tap through it, install it on your phone, get the animations, and it feels like it works, but there's no code yet. But it's a visual simulation paired with a development plan with each feature defined, estimated, and ready to code. And it's a taste of working with a dedicated team. So we assign a senior designer full-time for those 2 weeks to do that visual simulation, a solutions architect half-time to run through some workshops and make sure we prioritize the right features in your MVP, and a half-time lead developer to go and make kind of the development architecture decisions and estimates associated with building each feature. So that was the service. And here at Designli, we've always been about making sure the risk of picking the right software development partner didn't fall just on the shoulders of the non-tech founders hiring us, because you're talking to thousands of development companies. They all kind of seem the same. And it's like, you're not going to know if they're good until you start working with them. Like, that's unfortunately how the buying decision works for our customers. So the Solution Lab came and still comes with a risk reversal, which is, if you don't love your experience, you can get your money back guaranteed, no questions asked. So we'll ship your money right back to you. The goal is to build a long-term engagement as being your development partner, not just do these churn and burn 2-week things. So that offer worked for those reasons, because of the money back guarantee, and also because it allowed non-technical founders to share their idea with others and try to fundraise or try to get some market validation or whatever. So we ran that playbook for essentially the entire life of the business up until a pretty big pivot this year.
For sure. Yeah, I wish I found you before AI, and then I definitely would have used that offer. But now there's a lot of new things you're offering with the
Yeah,
Traction Lab, and ready to dive deep into that. With the whole AI shift, how do you think about like adapting the offering and like what you're giving now for the customers?
totally. Yeah, and we still, to be clear, we still do solution labs for some people because if you're building something really complex, like let's say it's a healthcare system or like a government platform, like you don't want to go quick and dirty with code generation. You want to make sure it's built really tight, really secure, in a very particular way at first. And you're willing to wait 6, 7, 8, 12 months to go and launch your first version because that's just a different type of business you're creating, right? You're not going to vibe code epic software to take over like how hospitals work. You're just not, right? There's different types of startups.
For
But
sure.
startups, the lion's share of startups we work with are consumer facing products or kind of business software as a service tools. And you need to get something in for the best way of building a startup has always been getting something in front of users, get feedback, iterate based on actual data instead of just building with your gut of what you think people want. So the AI coding revolution here, about in December 2025, this is where Claude Code and stuff really got quite good. And all developers kind of look at themselves and are like, oh man, shoot, this is really good. And it feels at first kind of like a threat to our business model because it is a threat to our previous business model, which is assign a team of 5 guys for 8, 12 months, oftentimes before you get to version 1 to build something big for founders, even if you are building something for the first time. So since the code is simply taking less time to generate, even if you insist that the engineering quality is good and still there, which we do, that's still a reason to hire an engineer instead of just vibe code yourself.
Yeah.
It's still just plain facts. It takes that build time way down. So what's interesting here is my partner and I, my business partner Josh, we looked at each other and realized that this was kind of an opportunity because we've always wished that we could help customers build a business out of the software more than we had been. However, since creating an app in the first place took so long, we've always been focused on the experience of building those features, making it not a black box, all those things I talked about because of the early days of our learnings with that applets business. And since it took so long, founders kind of oftentimes hit the end of their budget by the time launch day came. Everyone that's built something knows that launch day should be the start of your business building venture, not the end. It's not when things conclude. Again, what changed in December is coding is fast now. Like, oh man. And so the opportunity that presented itself was that we could start focusing on getting up the value chain of what we help customers achieve because our customers come to us asking for features. They say, I want an app that does these 20 things. But what they actually want, what they're not saying is, I want to build these so that I can get users that stick around and maybe pay me and I get revenue and I build business and I get product growth and traction. And so if building features has always just been a means to an end of building a business, we realized that we could make that our company's focus. And we don't want to just barf out code as quickly as possible. We want to help customers with building a business people will pay for. So yeah, we did totally radically rethink everything and train the entire team on being traction focused and installing this methodology that we call hypothesis driven development, which helps customers iterate on their product based on tightly tracking how users are using it and making it better week by week, getting it to a place of product led growth and ultimately traction and product market fit. So that's what the Traction Lab, not the Solution Lab anymore, now it's the Traction Lab, where we're writing code for you to the end of building your revenue generating business. That's the new offer.
Awesome. Yeah. Love it. Traction is super important to stay in business and grow your companies. Can you walk us through how long that usual offer takes? Like 12 weeks, 16 weeks to like getting up to like paying customers, and maybe give like an example of someone that's in the program now.
Yes, absolutely. So the Traction Lab is what came out of the shift. So just to describe it in plain words, it's much better at meeting the client where they are and getting them what they need right now. So if you start from scratch or building a new piece of software from scratch, the Traction Lab is a 90-day plan that's fairly priced to launch your startup. And so risk reversal, again, not putting all the risk on the customer has always been big to us. So what that means in this 90-day plan concept is that you can give us a try, meet our team. And if you don't love us for any reason, you can request a full refund anytime in the first 14 days for any reason, right? So you get to see how we think and build and work and talk and if we're consultative, all the things that you don't know until you work with the doers that are doing the doing. You get that 14-day parachute. And then within this 90-day plan construct here, we promise to customers that we'll get your app or web app built with your first user onboarded by day 30 guaranteed. Otherwise, month 2 is free. Because at first, that's the problem, right? Customers are saying, how much will it cost to build my app? And how long will it take? There's your answer. The first month has a fee attached to it, and we'll get it done. And your first user on board by the end of the month, or month 2 is free. And then from there, we focus all of our attention on getting you to your first dollar in revenue by day 90. That's the next goal that we set. And so you do that by monitoring how your first cohort of users are actually using the product, interpreting that fire hose of data that's coming to you, and Post-Hog is the system we use to track everything. And following that methodology I mentioned before, which is hypothesis-driven development, sounds hardcore and complex, but the idea is simple. You form a hypothesis on what you could optimize in the product, what metric it will improve, and then ship the engineering and design changes associated with that, but have the diligence and the discipline to look back and say whether it moved the needle or not. And the needles that matter, which is like how many people find us and then actually sign up and then complete the first core workflow and then come back the next day and then pay for an in-app purchase. This is the funnel of your usability of the product that we track really tightly, and we optimize writing features and changing features and designing stuff all in the lens of making the product a better revenue generating business, right? All engineering work should be in service of those goals, if that makes sense. That's what the Traction Lab is.
Definitely. Yeah, it sounds like a real partner in building a business and win-win for everyone. Can you talk to us a bit about the other types of founders as well that like you work with?
Yeah, totally. Well, we kind of meet founders in different buckets, like they come to us in different stages. So we talked about people starting from scratch, building the first thing. They have nothing so far. But more and more, there's a category of folks that come through our website that are takeovers. Like it used to be, oh, I have a horrible experience with this agency and I want someone to rescue me from this bad agency. And that still happens. But more and more it's, oh, I vibe coded something myself and I need help now. And that used to be 0%, obviously, before vibe coding was the thing. And now it's like 50% of people that come to us with that being their stage. And so the general moral of the story there, Colton, is that we deal with both of those customers a lot. And we still work on this idea of a 90-day plan, but we customize the 90-day plan to what the founder needs. And so what that looks like in practice is we do something called the Impact Week, which is a free 1-week audit where you work with our solutions architect in a series of workshops, but we try to understand what is holding your business back and what can we do and why. Like, let's audit the code, the go-to-market strategy, whatever is holding you back. So we'll ask the customer what's holding them back from achieving their goals, understand why that's happening, and then customize a 90-day plan to blast them past that roadblock and get them back to a place of focusing on achieving their vision and getting to traction. So the day 30 outcome guarantee is customized, right? We're going to customize it to be something that is most important to you to get you unblocked. The solutions architect will make the promise of what we're going to accomplish in the day 30 outcome, otherwise month 2 is free, and then customize what is then most important for day 60 and day 90 in that no cost impact week. And what comes out is essentially a Traction Lab that is just customized to you because you already have something with your first user, presumably. And yeah, common problems we find are different. I'd say for the vibe code people that we talk with, it's oftentimes, I don't have confidence marketing and selling this thing because I don't know if it's a flaming liability under the hood or not. And so we'll do a code audit in this impact week, no cost. And we'll say, yeah, it is a flaming liability under the hood. And before you ask people to pay money for this or trust it with their important business workflows or put in their personal identifiable information in this thing, you got to focus on security and code quality and oftentimes rebuild the whole backend because, hey, right now the entire backend is in a single file, which is 200,000 lines. And here's why that's bad. And so, yeah, it's like installing some engineering discipline into this thing before you try to build a business out of something that's just on a rocky foundation. That is a very common thing that we would guarantee that's complete within 30 days. Because again, when you can be an AI empowered engineer that knows how code works, you can still do it really fast, but you can just have that discipline that you wouldn't have had if you just were prompting your way into barfing out some features. So that's what it looks like for the non from scratch people.
For sure, appreciate that. Would you mind also shedding some light on like technical debt, like for non-technical founders? I think that's a big topic and could be useful for the
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah, it's a big topic right now because when code production gets really fast, and it's going to get faster and faster. I mean, the new models are insane. How fast you can create code. It's really easy to not have guardrails around how the code is being created. And AI loves like coding from scratch something that could have been a library that has been tried and true and installed in thousands of code bases in the last 10 years. No, let's just build that feature from scratch and I'll invent it. And doing things like code duplication, right? You go and say you want to add a new feature. It could have shared some elements with something that already exists in the code base, made it like a module, a reshareable module, but instead it's going to build it slightly differently. So you run code quality tools against these code bases where AI has been like barfing into it really fast, and you've got a ton of code duplication, you've got a ton of security vulnerabilities. You kind of see these problems compound. The good news is AI is also really good at tracking down issues with the code base and methodically fixing them. You just have to know what to look for and guide it with an engineering lens. And so what's interesting here, what's happening is that I don't think any of this stuff matters until you know people want your thing. So yes, barf out code and features as much as you want in the first day or week or month. And then when you understand that people want this thing and there's something at stake, there's users, there's personal identifiable information, there's workflows that they're relying on you for, there's revenue. These are the categories of things which is like, okay, break, stop. We need to actually have some engineering discipline here, understand how this works under the hood, make sure it's not going to blow up on you, make sure it's not a liability that you'll get sued over, etc. And install a process where you actually know what's happening under the hood, right? There's always going to be a place where that matters. But at first, in the pursuit of product market fit, what we weren't able to do back when coding took forever, it took 6 months to get the customer to like agree that their features are ready for others to see. We can do that in a week now, because at first you start to show this to your 10 friends or people that you think have this problem. And they're like, okay, sounds cool, but I'm not going to go and sign up for it. And you start to pivot the product, and like all that code you wrote, you might throw it away and do something new and like pivot until someone cares, and then worry about code quality. So that's always been the best way of building startups, but it was harder to do it that way in code because code was hard, and now it's becoming the case. So it's really a great opportunity for founders.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And can you share, I guess, one or two examples of like products that are out in the market that you've worked with?
Yeah, we've worked with tons of companies. I mean, hundreds of non-technical founders and some enterprises looped in there over the 13 years of doing this. A couple good examples. One that we like to talk about a lot is Secure Space. These guys built kind of like an Airbnb for truck parking and shipping container storage. You have free yard space, and you can allow someone to park their truck or store their shipping container there overnight, for example, and do some transactions there. We help those guys scale up to $20 million ish of recurring revenue, and then exit, a nice success story of an exit. And more examples, we have some great customers doing healthcare products, another shipping and receiving customer. We maintain all of the software for the state of South Carolina's emergency response portal. There's all these state workers that come in here and do critical like emergency workflows, like a fire chief requesting backup from other counties to come and help put out a fire with hazmat suit experience, right? There's a lot of things that we build. The enterprise stuff is a little bit different when it comes to, or the state example I gave is a little bit different, but when it comes to products where it's a SaaS or a consumer facing startup, it is really all about the business building methodology around what to do next. Because even when we get to a place of users and revenue and folks caring about this, founders still have this kind of, they default to this like, oh, I think it would be nice to do this thing next, right? Like with the direction of the wind when you're golfing, and making product decisions based on gut. So we want to be the people that install a data-driven methodology instead. And at the end of the day, we're a services company, so we'll do what the customer insists on. But that is a refreshing take that a lot of people appreciate, that you're going to be consultative here and help install a drumbeat of forward momentum towards more product market fit, more revenue.
Sounds pretty impactful. Yeah, with this shift and like where team is at and the business, like where do you
Yeah.
see yourself in a few years?
Yeah, I mean, right now we've spent the last 6 months kind of rewiring our brains of our team. The biggest change has been on the product owner side. Product owners historically have been the ones spoon feeding developers tickets, right? So understanding the business, what the customer's trying to accomplish, translate it into development tasks with acceptance criteria, and saying, "Here, developer, go work on this for 2 weeks and tell me when it's done." And test it when it's done to make sure it lines up with the customer's expectation. But that job has fundamentally shifted if you think about what's happened in the last 6 months since, again, December 2025. Because if the development side of that got accelerated by 10x or more, 20x, now running acceptance criteria and spoon feeding tickets, that's something that Claude is great at, right? And even testing the outcome. And so our product owners have been trained into becoming the traction engine. So running the discipline, being the ones to be very analytically minded to pose changes as experiments rather than just like the customer wants this, we're going to build it. It's like, okay, we think this experiment will improve the business. And also helping with some light marketing activities, because in these traction labs for from scratch people, the product owner is the one responsible for getting the first cohort of users on there and then figuring out how to get them to pay the first dollar of revenue by day 90. And so they have to do things like a landing page and a waitlist email and a drip campaign and figure out the push notifications that would most re-engage with the user base, setting up social accounts, ad accounts, like all this stuff. The nice thing about AI is that it allows people that are smart to do more stuff in what would have been different disciplines. So that's how we're doing that, of course, right? We just have to make sure we have really great product owners that can do a wide range of things. And then there's places for specialists where, okay, you need like a go-to-market engineer and we'll place that for you half-time and do more hardcore paid ads or something like that. But that's been the biggest change kind of inside our team, is wiring everyone to care about and
Yeah.
growth as the mission.
Very cool. Yeah, and entrepreneurship isn't like an easy journey. It's like a roller coaster ride. So talk to me about some like challenges you've overcome or like failures or lessons learned.
Yeah, I mean, I gave a lot of examples of early on. We had plenty of failures there where our applets business only made $1,800 of revenue over 3 years of work. So it's like, okay, that's a failure. But we did right by the investors and rolled them into Designli and paid them back. So we tried to make the most of it. But yeah, lessons learned. I mean, it's kind of what I was hinting at earlier, which is toiling away to find a problem and then making sure that you care enough about solving the problem that you'll stick it out. I mean, I didn't necessarily think that I would be in the custom software services space for 13 years, but if you care enough about solving a problem that you experience firsthand, then
Stick it out. Yeah.
stick around long enough to make it happen, because it does take a lot longer than you might think. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was learned the hard way, I'd say.
definitely. Yeah, any last minute thoughts for the audience?
I think if you're thinking about building a software driven business, the tools are going to get better and better. I mean, they already have been. It's just been exponentially improving over time. And that's only going to continue. So as that happens, there's going to be more and more products, software products, in my example, competing for the same number of users. Like the number of humans that are buying software is kind of staying relatively the same. Humans on the planet obviously increasing, but the boom of number of software products is like exploding right now. So with users being able to choose more solutions, and then like, I'll build it myself, is also a path they could take if they're like a business trying to find the next CRM to run their sales process, as an example. Founders have to be really laser focused on their ICP, what the ICP needs, getting them getting them value as quickly as possible, making the software so valuable that they'll pay for it and stick around. And that requires the founder to fall in love with the problem and not just the product, but like be willing to guide product decisions and changes with the lens of their business outcomes, right? You can't just build something you think is perfect and then have a multi-year sales effort to sell that thing. You have to get in the trenches and learn from and listen to customers every single day and use that to make the product as valuable as possible. That's the only way to stand out. So it's not just about the features.
For sure. Yeah, thank you for your time. Where can people find you at and get in touch with Designli and be useful to you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Keith Shields, Designli. Just search that. I've got a monthly newsletter I post over there. Some posts in general on my feed every couple days that I think are interesting when I find stuff on the interwebs. And then our team, Designli.co. You're more than welcome to read more about us. Read our blog. There's a lot of stuff for non-technical founders on there. Our sales team is super helpful and consultative. So reach out if you've got a business you want to start or a software product you want to fix up, and we're happy to chat. Happy to help.
Thank you. And yeah, Founder Social Club's like a longtime partner. Definitely check out Designli. I'll shoot some contact info in the show notes and look forward to seeing you all soon.